What's up, guys? We are back with another Mythic Legions review, taking a look at something somewhat familiar, but also something a little bit different. We have got the Graveyard Skeletons 4-pack today. So this is 4 of our Skeleton Legion Builder 2 that has been out for a little while now, and we've kind of gotten, by virtue of the Necronominous wave, in a few different ways. But this is done up in, of course, a 4-pack with some new stuff, as well as a unique colorway for our skeletons. It also comes in a pretty unique style packaging. This is definitely not the norm for Legion, so it's a full-on 4-pack with all figures kind of there front and center in display. And what's really cool about this is the actual packaging design on the back. Like, this is definitely inspired by that super old Walt Disney short, The Skeleton Dance, the thing that like the spooky, scary skeleton song uses a lot in all those YouTube videos. So this is definitely taking some inspiration from that in some of like the goofy posturing, and then specifically the artwork on the back really kind of calls back to that. At least that's what it is to me. You know, here we'll find out that maybe that's not what it is, but it certainly looks like it. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Mythic Legion's Graveyard Skeleton. So we've got a 4-pack of skeletons. Of course, I've just got one here right now, so we can kind of go over articulation. But this is just a repaint with a few little add-ons that are slightly different in terms of accessories and things like that compared to the regular Skeleton Legion builder or compared to, say, Maxilius the Harvester. The big difference is really just the color on these. So of course, kind of the focus will be showing what's different between this guy and the two that you may or may not already have. Now, as far as articulation goes, there's nothing quote-unquote new here if you already have the Skeleton Legion Builder 2, but if you don't, then, well, this is new. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. Head can look up, looks down pretty good. You got tilt side to side, you got rotation. You got a movable jaw, of course. Arms out at the shoulders. They swivel. We've got our single jointed swiveling elbow with, and I'm gonna keep pointing this out until I'm blue in the face, I suppose, with the increased range on these newer arms, which I love. You've got hinges, you've got swivel at the wrist, of course. One of the big departures, we'll say, for this particular kind of skeleton compared to, well, just about any other Legion's figure is where they move at the chest. There is no waist twist on here because, well, he has no waist. So there's a peg that goes up into the torso. So he goes backwards slightly, but they go forward really, really good. Tilt side to side. The tilt on these is great, and then that's your swivel point also to get him to go all the way around. Legs, of course, have just all the range in the world because there's nothing there. So they go out, they go forward. You can get those high kicks backwards. No thigh cuts on these or any skeleton that have bone legs, just as it goes with Legions. Got the ratcheted knees, so they go better than 90 now. These still have swivel. There is swivel, rocker, and hinge, of course, down at those ankles, and really good movement there because, again, there's really nothing getting in the way. So this guy does have all of that updated articulation compared to, we'll say, the older style of skeletons, but of course he is exactly the same as the Skeleton Legion Builder V2 or Maxilius the Harvester. Like I said, though, the main focus and kind of the big thing to look at with these is definitely the difference in color between the other two skeletons that are essentially exactly the same. From a toy manufacturing perspective, it of course makes a lot of sense to reuse this and of course repaint it, but it also makes sense in the context of Legions because we already have a number of different color skeletons. So it's just more of the same, but, well, I guess in a different way. So let's bring out the other skeleton. So here is our Skeleton Legion Builder V2. And then here is Maxilius the Harvester. Of course, he doesn't have any robes on. So they are not like super, super different. And this guy isn't like super gray either. He is definitely grayer than everything. Maxilius is the quote-unquote necronominous bone color, and then the Skeleton Legion Builder is a more, I guess I would say, traditional bone color. Like, this is what I expect when I think of a bone. So that's a little bit of a maybe more realistic type of skeleton. One of the other differences, the Maxilius head doesn't have a hinged jaw, so that's a little bit of a difference. But otherwise, they are all the same beyond that. And you can see this guy is just essentially ashen in some ways. There is a little hint, and I'm assuming this is just part of it for color mixing. There's definitely a hint of blue in this skeleton, not like that he's a blueberry or anything like that. It's just ever so slight. So they are all very similar. They are the same parts. There's really nothing different there or nothing surprising in terms of that. It's just a different interpretation of the same skeletal parts, just in a different color. So if this may be one of those things that you don't necessarily like this color, or you prefer this to the others. So this is your chance to get those, or maybe you don't have to have this one. Maybe you're not like me, and you don't have to have every single damn Legions that exists. But we do have, I think, a pretty interesting looking color. Like, I do like this color quite a bit, and it does help in some ways compared to the others because it's different applications of paint, different applications of shading. It does bring out some details in a different way. So some stuff is going to be maybe a little bit more highlighted on this figure than the other two, just because there's a little bit more of a darker color here. So you can maybe pick out some of those details and see maybe a little bit more of those cracks and crevices and all the cracks and, the splits of bone and where everything comes together and all the voids and everything in there. There's not as much gunk on the inside of the torso like some of the others, that kind of thing. Overwhelmingly, though, I mean, it's still the same figure. I love the Skeleton Legion Builder 2. It's a major shift in terms of what Legions is for the Bone Boys, I suppose. And it's nice to be able to get this, at least for me, because I love skeletons and I'm a big fan of all the colored skeletons we've gotten so far. This is another instance of that, and another way for me to get some multicolored skeletons on the shelf that, maybe is just a little bit different and something new in terms of what colors we have available. Now, as far as accessories goes, these guys come with some old stuff, like some really old stuff, and then some new stuff. And the major selling point for this set for me, well, outside of just the value here, is the fact that you can change up the look of all 4 skeletons to be unique from one another, to at least a small degree. So to start with, we get 2 masks. We get the deep gray and we get the white one here. And this is the skeletons wearing a skull of a slightly larger, because it has to fit over their heads, right? A slightly larger humanoid type creature. It's got a missing tooth. It's got some, jagged parts. It's all cut out. It's literally just sitting over top of their skull. I will say this does seem to be meant specifically for this skeleton, and this particular head rather, because it definitely cinches down on it in a very specific way. It's not like, something that you can't try to fudge onto something else, I suppose, but it's definitely meant for this skull, and it sits very much in a way that the eye sockets on the mask will sit over top of the eye sockets on the skull, on the skeleton's head. So you've got that, and then we've got the Headless Horseman's pumpkin head. We haven't seen this in a bit, so you've got a grayscale version of that. But the coolest piece, I think, is this one. So this is a vampiric skeleton head. So it's an entirely different sculpt. It does still have the moving jaw, but it's got fangs on it to, of course, make it seem like it's a vampire. And it also, I guess this is what this is for anyway, it also has a separate set of feet. So these are more monster clawed toed kind of feet. I guess that fits a vampire more so than a regular human, but you've got an option to make them slightly more different than the rest. But at face value, you can at least change up the look so that they're all not a carbon copy of each other on your shelf. We do get some extra hands as well. So there's 3 different sets of hands and you get 2 sets of each. So there are a dozen extra hands in this set. The first is a set of style posy gesturing hands. A set of finger pointing hands, which I love, especially for skeletons. That's really cool. And then you get a vertically hinged set of gripping hands. And of course, these all have laterally hinged gripping hands on them in the box. So there's a lot of hands in this pack. We get some weaponry, of course, and this is kind of all the old stuff. So this is similar to the stuff that the Skeleton Legion Builder 2 came with, I believe. So we get a grayscale version of the very classic circular shield. It's got the handle on the back. We get a grayscale version of just the standard Mythic Legion sword. So dirtied silver blade with a gray handle. And then we get a grayscale spear here as well. And of course you get 2 of each of these items. So, each one of these guys can have something in their hands that came out of this box. So there is quite a bit here. I mean, especially when you take into the fact that this is only a $100 set. 4 figures, 2 masks, an extra head, an extra pair of feet, another pumpkin head, and all of these weapons and hands. There is a lot of stuff just crammed into this box on top of already getting 4 figures for a super cheap Legion's price. So yeah, overall, I mean, I really like this set. This is one of those that it's definitely not going to be for everyone because maybe you don't need 100 different skeletons, right? Maybe you don't want 4 skeletons at the same time either. So that's always a possibility. If you're into skeletons, though, I don't know why you would skip on this one because it is an easy way to get more skeletons in this particular format at a really affordable price point beyond that. So you don't have to go backwards and get Skeleton Legion Builder 2s. You don't have to try and buy Maxilius's just to derobe him and spend more money on a figure. This is another way to get a lot of bone parts into your collection. I love the masks. I really like that more vampiric skull in particular. I really want to see more of that stuff like as soon as possible. And we know it's coming in All-Star 6 with some of those heads, but it's really nice to be able to get some of that stuff now. I like the usage of the Headless Horseman pumpkin here as well. So it's just a really well-rounded out set that includes a whole bunch of stuff for you to make a bunch of gray skeletons. So that's going to do it for this look at the Mythic Legion's Graveyard Skeletons. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.